Hello and welcome to the video. I'm up here at 3DXR with Ben. Say hello, Ben.
Hello.
And this time I wanted to pick his brains about how you size wire, specifically when you're putting together your fixed wing or your drone, about what wire and gauge you use, but also what kind of connectors you do too, because I can get very confused even now trying to figure out what American wire gauge number I need for a particular job. And Ben and I spent quite a bit today talking over a couple of cups of coffee about how we do it. So I thought it'd be useful to kind of put together an easy guide for how you can make sure that you're choosing the right size of wire if you are building your own drone, or maybe you are building a fixed wing and you want to put extension cables in or to power distribution boards, and also touch on things like connectors as well. Now, I think the first thing that's worthwhile mentioning is how American wire gauge works. The weird thing is the higher the number, so American wire gauge 12 American wire gauge will carry less current and is a smaller wire than 8 American wire gauge. So it's a bit weird. The smaller the American wire gauge number, the larger the conductor and the larger the current capacity. Now, the rule of thumb that I tend to use for this stuff is when I have a speed controller, I will look at the gauge wire. It's always printed on the side. Normally with any decent silicon covered wire, it'll be printed on the side. I'll look at what that standard is and I will try and maintain that size of wire right the way through the model. And if I get into a situation where I'm connecting a couple of ESCs up, maybe it's a twin motor plane, if it's a 12 gauge wire, I'll go down to a 10 gauge wire from where those come together in a power distribution board. But it also makes a difference for things like single versus multi-strand as well, doesn't it? Because these things are actually made up of lots of very, very fine conductors, which makes it flexible.
And also the multi-core cable is best for soldering, whereas sort of single solid core cable is normally something that would be clamped or crimped for electrical connections. But yeah, so we've got a little selection in front of us here. We've picked a few connectors and batteries and some other electronics just to have a look at the process of picking wire gauge. Like your rule you said there about what wire's already on the ESC, obviously you wouldn't want to go smaller, further defeats the object. Same with, you could look at it the other end, like what's on the battery. For example, here we have a 10 gauge cable. Now it would be silly if in a single battery system to then make this wire even bigger. It would achieve nothing in this case. So for example, if this one here, this 8 gauge, goes off to power a few motors, each of those would then drop down a gauge to ensure we have the correct wire for the job. So let's have a look at some ballpark figures. Now you must bear in mind that just because the wire says it's 8 gauge or wire from different manufacturers, wire that's been plated differently, the silicon jacket could be different. So there's quite a few variables when you buy wire. But let's just have a look at some numbers related to the wire gauge and the sort of continuous current we can run. So 8 gauge, we could be up to about 180 amps comfortably at a constant current while maintaining a nice temperature. 10 gauge, maybe 120 amps, 12 gauge, 60 or 70 amps continuous, 14 gauge could be about 45 amps, and 16 gauge, something like 30 amps continuous current draw, which maintains the wire at a cool temperature. Not just wire gauge, we also have to look at what connector is used. On that wire, you must use the appropriate connector. So I think we could see here we won't fit an XT30 on this gauge wire, not today. But on 8 gauge wire, it'll just fit into an XT90, or what we have here is a AS150U. So we must also look at the current that can go through the connector. So the name XT90 is generally taken to mean a maximum current, a burst current of 90 amps. But this will have a continuous current rating of more like 60 amps. An XT60 is a max current of 60 amps, but a constant current of 30 amps. So this is something you have to take into consideration with the connectors you use, because choosing the wrong size connector, too small, it could fail. Too big, you could have sort of additional resistance, which results in a voltage drop in your circuit. It is important to choose the right cable and connector. and also to choose the sort of highest quality cable you can get. Let's just run through a few of these. So the XT30 there, we said this would be a max current of about 30 amps and a continuous current of about 15 amps. This is something that can be used with 16 or 18 gauge wire. The XT60s, here's the original type, which was soldered back onto. Here's the more modern type XT60H, which has a rear cover. So this has a max current of 60 amps and continuous of 30. This could be used with something up to 12 gauge wire. 40 and 12 gauge will be the sort of norm to use with an XT60. Another thing you get on battery connectors, as we have on the example in front of us, is the anti-spark mechanism. So generally when you're sort of at 6S and above, you have the risk of having a spark on connection. And these basically have a built-in resistor. So as you make the connection, it sort of charges up and reduces that spark. It sort of eliminates the spark. You must make sure you fully connect both ends of the XT90, or you can damage or blow the anti-spark properties. So most higher voltage connectors and large connectors have a built-in anti-spark system. Here we have some of the largest connectors. This is a QS12. This also features the anti-spark. So the anti-spark connector, on some of the other types where it's individual pins, the anti-spark should be the last connection to be made. If you have individual red and black wires, the one that has the anti-spark should be connected last. One issue you run into when you're using large current and voltage systems, if you're grouping together many batteries to make 12 or 24S, is that the battery connector almost becomes like an on-off switch. So there is some newer products here. So this is an example here of this is a Hobbywing Safety E power switch. This one does happen to be a bit of a beast, but this is their 300 amp 18S system. And the idea here is that as you connect your batteries up to make your 18S and your battery bank to maybe have a sort of large capacity, it's not turned on when you connect the batteries. It's actually turned on by the switch. So this is, you could think of it as like a pre-charge circuitry. So it's a way of connecting all these batteries in series and parallel and having one on-off switch to make that final circuit. This also eliminates the spark. What you would imagine is if you are making a big vehicle where you connect up, it needs many batteries in 12S or 24S and tens of thousands of amp hour batteries. What's on the other end could be 8-speed controllers with huge capacitor banks that instantly put a load on. So that's what gives you the spark when you connect the battery. So something like this is what people should consider using when they are making the larger drones with many motors and multiple batteries in series and parallel.
So one of the things that I always found confusing was that when you are choosing a bit of wire, if you go and have a look on the American wire gauge rating charts, you know, because we've all looked at those, the currents that are listed on there are dramatically less than what we typically will push these things in the hobby. Is that because something we're doing, that we're using the wire differently? As an electrician, when I look at that, that says to me, well, that's continuous, the cable in the wall, in insulation. So it had to be able to sustain that current capacity for days at a time, typically in a domestic house. But we will fly for 8, 12, 20 minutes at a time, and it's air cooled. Is that one of the reasons why we tend to push it?
Yeah, the type of jacket on these, this is a soft silicon jacket, if you like. So this will take 200 degrees. So that's one of the reasons why you could push them a bit further. It's also these nickel plated wires and very high thread count. So for example, this is 12 gauge wire here. This has got 680 individual threads that make up this. So that allows it to carry the current and get a rating. A realistic continuous current on this is 60 or 70 amps, whereas if you look this up on some of the American tables meant for sort of AC household electric, they might tell you 10 amps. That's not correct for the type of use we're using. Commercial users who say put wires like this in products, I would stress you should obviously carry out your own tests with the wire you've got in the scenario you have. These numbers are meant as sensible guidance based on my experience, and a sort of good number to go through, a conservative number that can be pulled on this wire.
So hopefully that clears it up a little bit about why, looking at the American wire gauge stuff, why it is so different from what there is in the hobby, because you might be looking at a piece of wire on a multi-rotor that is being asked to carry 50 amps, and you look at the American wire gauge standard and it's rated for 20. That's kind of how we get away with some of that. But I would definitely say my personal advice would be look at the wire that's coming out of the speed controller. Never go less than that as you come back into any power distribution board, and use the wire gauge that's actually already connected to your battery to then connect that battery to any power distribution system. If you follow those two rules, you usually don't go far wrong. But always check whenever you are flying a new model when it lands. I'd always check that nothing is getting hot, nothing's getting too warm, the ESCs, the motors, but also the connectors and the cables. And if they are, you know, it's probably time to check out that you haven't undersized something. Thanks again, Ben. Hopefully that helps you make the right decisions if you're building something. If you follow those rules of thumb, you should be fine. Thank you for watching the video. If you watch my videos and find them useful, then please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel a lot. If you really like what I'm doing here, you can become a Patreon and support the time I spend helping others and get access to lots of exclusive benefits. Link is in the video description. Remember that all the videos on the channel are organized into playlists, so you can easily use those playlists to find all the videos on a subject that you are interested in. Add Painless 360 to your searches on Google and YouTube, and it'll help you find my content for any particular topic. Thanks again for watching, and as always, happy flying.